yeah, 24 karat gold in this book because let's make it proper, whatever else. And I'm just going crazy. It's actually not that expensive if you're going creating custom dies for every letter already. Okay, next slide. One more thing. I said I'm turning this up to 25. Now you saw that I have a whole bunch of the books that I've bought. Everyone is slightly different, but this gave me lots of copies to work with. So I had lots of spare parts available in case I screwed up while working on this. So to give you an example of something that I have, this is a blank white page. This is from one of the original copies of the book that they used as the same copy. These are actually really hard to find in good condition because most of these get ruined in the books. And so this book has a white page. Original, make sure proper. And then just to make it a little bit crazier, you can't get too picky with the colours. This is a blue page from one of the other editions that happen to have a different colour print on the inside framing. So, you know, it's not quite right, but this hasn't been dyed. This is actually the original colour that it was. It's kind of a turquoise blue, but I don't want to ruin it by dyeing it because it's already so close. And for all the fans of the other brother out there, the final inside cover of the book is red. So, full trifecta of colours. So, actually showing off the book here, here's what I prepared earlier. That's what the actual book looks like. It's kind of tied, trying to see from a distance. So yeah, this, as you can see, the lettering on the spine was copied over as well from the front. Now, turning this on, because this has actually got a lot of electronics in this, and I figured the easiest way for me is actually start turning this on and then doing it like this, running it through the actual physical book as well as pictures to show you how it's working. Now, I'm going to warn you, the software in this is not so stable, so if it crashes, I'm sorry. The hardware's a little picky because all this is hand done, as you'll find out. It may crash. I'll just reboot it and we'll try again at the end of the day. Also, I should warn you, this thing contains some very, very, very high density lithium-ion batteries that have no shielding in them. So, just in case, just in case, if I puncture it, exits are there. And if this starts venting any gas, please leave in an orderly fashion and don't breathe the gas because it's highly toxic and poisonous and we'll need a fire extinguisher because this is going to burn through the stage.
Ryan, bring it over here so the live stream can see, please.
Where's live stream?
Okay, right here.
How can I see it? Oh, way down there?
Come.
Maybe the pages. All good?
Let me actually supply
Light, what is this? Photons.
There you go.
Woo! Stream got it?
Yes.
Okay, don't cross the streams. Okay, so to turn this on, I didn't get time and I don't actually have all the space necessary to actually physically add a button to turn this on. So the way I do this is with some tweezers and I short out the power cables. This is what a Myst book looks like booting Windows XP. When I say this has a computer inside it, it literally has an entire computer built inside it. To give you an idea of scale, this is 10 centimeters. I have no idea what this is in imperial. I'm sorry, you crazy people using Imperial systems. But Apple's Mac Mini is generally considered one of the smallest computers of similar power level, and that's 17 centimeters. It doesn't include a screen, it doesn't include a battery. So that gives you an idea of just how small that actually is. Fun fact, there's a video that pops up on the startup of Atris playing where it just says, "Who the devil are you?" So basically the way this will work is I'll try to use this book where I can, and where I can't use the book because it's crashed, I'll just continue on my presentation physically on that. So, and look, and read this book. How many years did you spend on this book?
How many years, how many lifetimes, what does it matter?
Next slide. So shrinking a computer to actually fit physically inside this space is... I'll show you that slide. Next slide, please. To actually fit into this size space is a crazy, crazy thing that very few computer modders have ever tried doing something that tiny. And this is the first time I've actually tried making something that small myself. It was kind of a thing of me waiting years and years for technology to advance because I need to wait for things to become small enough and low power enough to be able to actually work on this. So this is a good example of just how small everything has to be. The top left is the miniature power supply unit that I have, which is a double-sided PCB with chips on all four sides. And that basically takes it from the battery input straight from the battery to go to the various voltages that a computer needs. If you consider that to a normal computer's power supply on a desktop, which is a big box, or if you consider that to a laptop's thing, which is normally, a brick-shaped thing or whatever else that goes to the wall, that thing is freaking tiny, and that actually physically plugs into the computer. The one on the top right is a cable for the amplifier. There used to be speakers in the book, but they burnt out, just happened. It was originally USB power, but I had to cut it back and solder it directly to the 5-volt and ground lines because I did not have the physical space inside the book for a USB cable. The bottom left is the touchscreen USB cable, which was much longer, and to give you an idea of how bad that one was. On the left of the cable, there's normally a little bit of a tension relief that happens, and that took up too much space, so I physically had to cut down the head of the cable. And on the bottom right is an adapter to go from VGA to VGA, male to male adapter that is tiny thin compared to the normally brick-sized ones they are. And the most important thing about this thing, the pictures too on the right were too big to use in my book and I had to modify them. So that's just how little space I actually had inside the thing. So past this will get a little bit technical for the actual physical talk. And I'm actually start showing some games actually working on this. So start running something. The touchscreen does work with your finger, but I have a stylus just because it's a bit easier to work. So this is, for instance, Myst running on a Myst book. As you do Inception.
Show it to the side. Yeah.
Show it around.
Okay, that side. That side, the other side. So you get all the logos and videos and whatever else. Yeah, if you would like. You can do whatever, I'm not sure. I'm not really prepared for this. Next slide. Another example of this, for instance, is the motherboard. If you ever looked inside a desktop computer at the motherboard or even inside a netbook, that is not the size of a normal motherboard. That is an incredibly tiny thing, but that is absolutely everything that I needed. That was the thing that actually I needed the background checks for because that was the most difficult to get. And to give an example of cost to some of the components inside this, that was over $800 just for that one physical board. Because that is, basically it's a medical grade component that didn't quite meet the ratings, and so they sell it off for 1 0 less on the price to any consumer who wishes to buy it for an industrial purpose. To get this working properly, because I needed to run the games, I wanted this to run all of the Myst games, absolutely every Myst game ever made. So I can't use an ARM processor, I can't emulate this, it has to be original x86 processor, so it actually runs the physical games. I just have to click the thing here just because I just have to. Even better, this one. Myst book on a Myst book. Show you that this is physically playable. It is, entirely everything. I can navigate around the entire island, do whatever else. I could do a speed run on this right here, though. You can see that that's physically everything that is literally all of this right there. Just click this and try the 3D one to show how this. Don't save!
He said don't save.
Let's try Myst 5. I'll have to go through the loading intros things. So yes, that's the motherboard. If you haven't noticed one thing though, this book is completely sealed. So on the left, for instance, you'll see the heat sinks on there. Those are because that's how little power it uses. If you ever look at any computer that only have fans in it, this is a physical book that is 137 years old, made of newspaper and glue. And it's sealed, so I have problems with the heat in this book. So everything, the only way to stop that is to make it as low power as possible. So, for instance, the CPU is actually the smaller of the two heat sinks. That's just how little power it has. And when I say this computer has power in it, it actually has enough power to run Half-Life 2 at 30 frames a second. So it's actually quite reasonable. And even today, if I was doing this again 2 years later, finishing date, there's very few components in this book that I'd be able to upgrade for anything faster, just because there's almost nothing in that power envelope and size envelope that is physically small enough. To give you another example of just how big that size is, that only takes up less than half the space in that book. You can kind of see my hand. And this is my netbook to give you a size, and you know, it is way smaller than even an entire netbook on there. The other problem though is that this means you have to make everything so incredibly close. So this means that you have to start putting in electromagnetic shielding, because I literally have the power lines running, I think it's around 1/8 of an inch from the actual CPU die itself. Anyone who knows anything about electronics will know just how insane that is. Do not do that. You do not put your power line that close to the CPU. That is a big no-no, but that is the only physical way I could actually ground stuff inside the computer. Next slide. Displaying everything. The screen, if you see there, the screen on this looks absolutely fantastic. I want this to be absolutely perfect, and to be as perfect as possible, my standard was it has to look great from Myst. So it had to look, at the end of the day, pixel perfect, one-to-one with the original version of Myst Masterpiece Edition. That was the pinnacle that I wanted to put on it. So it turns out that if you want a screen has to be exactly the size of the book, and it's got to be very low power, and it's got to actually look good. Even if you exclude the fact of look good to be very just mediocre and marginal quality, it turns out that if you want a 640 by 480 panel between 4.7 to 5.1 inches, and that means that there's actually only 3 LCD panels that have ever been manufactured by the actual raw manufacturers in Asia that actually meet those requirements. And you try finding one of those as the actual raw panels. It's a very difficult challenge. So I ended up with a 640 by 480 LED backlit panel. So it's incredibly low power, and everything looks one-to-one pixel perfect for Myst, Riven, and Exile. And for later games such as Uru or End of Ages, it'll downscale because it can actually handle up to 2048 by 1536 as an analog signal that will automatically get converted. Now, as you can see, I was using it as a touchscreen because there was a custom touchscreen put on top of that. When you actually start going, I want this size screen that's going to have a touchscreen on top, you can't just physically buy something like that. So I had the glass for the touchscreen custom ground for me in China, which is a resistive 4-wire touchscreen with 2048 by 2048 resolution, 160 samples a second, 40 milliseconds input lag, for anyone who cares about the tech specs like that. At the end of the day, basically it's got a custom screen and touchscreen put on it, so it's actually usable. I use a stylus only because it's fingerprints. I don't want to have to clean the screen all the time. But at the end of this is basically, as you can tell on the book, that fits perfectly. One of the other facts is that Cyan does not know how to actually make the linking panel the same size. Every book, every game, it's a different size, it's a different position. If you actually look at Riven at the linking books, it's almost, the panel is around halfway down the book. This is not a joke, it's symmetrical halfway down the book. You don't remember this, probably don't notice, but it actually is when you actually go and check it. So trying to make something that actually looks the right size is a little bit difficult. But I think it actually turned out okay. Now, let's just see if I can get to End of Ages. And then I'll move on. You go to the next slide now. I'll just